Okay, so good morning everyone. My name is Cao Jin and I'm from Tübingen University and Peking University. First, I would like to thank George and thank Michael for bringing me into the Damin project, and greatest thanks to Dennis who offered me this great opportunity to join this fantastic conference. And so I have the honor to be the first today, probably because my title sounded wild enough to wake everybody up. So I hope that I can live up to this expectation. Actually, I will be talking about copper today, about copper mining and copper coin production in southwest China. My time frame is mainly the 18th and the 19th century. During this time, China had a bimetallic currency system. Silver circulated by weight for larger transactions, while copper coins were used either one by one or in strings of 1,000 for exchange in daily life. The legal exchange rate between silver and copper coin is 1 tael silver equals to 1,000 copper coins, that is one string. If we want to look at the relation between mining and minting these copper coins, we need to first see what they're actually made of. Alloy proportions varied somewhat over time, but for instance, in 1801, they were fixed to be 54% of copper, 42.75% of zinc, and 3.25% of lead. If we take the visual commodity, if we take the euro commodity prices around 1800, the intrinsic value of a coin in silver consequently looked like this. We can see that at least 80% of a coin's value was in its copper. This percentage could easily be higher than that because a varying amount of zinc evaporated during the casting process. Now, where did China's mint copper come from at this time? When the Qing dynasty was founded in 1644, China had no notable copper production at all. The first Qing coins were thus made by recasting coins from the preceding Ming period. All copper needed to be imported from Japan. During the 17th century, large parts of southwest China were in fact controlled by indigenous rulers, but when in the early 18th century, central control was strengthened, large-scale mining operations became possible. That was the case first in Yunnan in the 1720s with great success, somewhat later and somewhat slower in Sichuan, and also on a much smaller scale in Hunan province. We will be looking at the situation in Sichuan today. So here it is. While most of Yunnan's copper was transported to Beijing to provide for the metropolitan mints, Sichuan's copper mostly remained in the province to be minted in the Chengdu mint. So here is a map of Chengdu in 1902. And the Chengdu mint, as you can see, is here. It was established in 1732 in the northwest part of the princely palace in the city center of Chengdu. 113 rooms were reserved for it, and it had 8 furnaces at the beginning. Until 1755, the number of furnaces increased to 40. We know no more about this layout than that in 1747, it had 1 main gate, 2 furnace house gates, for the then 30 furnace rooms with their 30 polishing and filing rooms plus 15 supply rooms and another 6 storage rooms. From the situation of the Beijing mint, we can gain a somewhat clearer idea about what it may look like before. So, as you can see here is the Dongtangzi Hutong mint in Beijing, and we have a perfect clear layout of this mint. This mint can be divided into 2 parts, the west and the east. The left part, the west part are the rooms for bureaus, And the east part are the factories for minting and the dormitories for mint workers. And you can also see in this circle is a beautiful garden at the bureau side. And this circle is a furnace god temple. So the workers go there to worship the gods, to bless them, cast better coins. And in this layout, we also have a very detailed list about how many numbers, what's the numbers of all different type of rooms. For example, the furnace rooms were 75. You may remember in the Chengdu Mint, the furnace room was 30 to 40. So you can imagine the Chengdu Mint is about half of the size of this. And it's also comparable because the Chengdu Mint was built on the basis of a princely palace, and this one was built on a very high-rank scholar official in Beijing. So maybe there was also a garden in the Chengdu Mint, I don't know. So how does a Chinese mint look like from inside? Here is a picture I already showed last time in the Copenhagen conference. So it's only for you to get a quick impression. It's actually, they put every worker in one room to display. In fact, they are actually in different rooms. Coins were produced by the so-called sand turning method. This means that specially prepared matrix coins were placed between two sandboxes and later removed. Their double-sided imprints were then connected with casting channels, and as a result, after casting, so-called cash trees obtained. From these trees, coins needed to be broken off and finished in numerous steps like filing or polishing. During its early years, the Chengdu Mint was the second largest coin producer in China's provinces behind the Dongchuan Mint in the then flourishing copper production region Yunnan. That when Yunnan's copper production began to decline, Chengdu Mint became the largest mint outside of Beijing, as we can see when we look at the numbers for the years 1806 to 1810. With certain intermissions, the Chengdu Mint operated in that way until 1901, when screw presses were installed and Western-styled minting techniques were taken over. Only 2 years later, it was entirely suspended. Throughout the Qing period, like all the other mints in China, the work of the Chengdu Mint had to be reported yearly by its superiors in detail to the Ministry of Finance in Beijing in so-called routine memorials, as my title said. These documents are for the greatest part preserved and held by the #1 or first historical archives of China in Beijing inside of the Forbidden City. A smaller share was brought to Taiwan and is held by the Academia Sinica in Taipei. What do these routine memorials look like? Here, I first show you one example. Need to pay attention, it's not like all the routine memorials are for mint reports. They're actually for many different topics. And this is one beautiful colored original version. That's why I show you here. As you can see, the black part are written by the officials to report all kind of topics. And the right side, you can see the vermilion rescript in 2 languages, the Manchu and Han Chinese. So at least we know why China needs so much quicksilver from California. That is for the vermilion rescript, for example. And another example I can show you, this is a routine memorial for mint report of Chengdu. And you see, I only get a black-white copy, so at least I can roll it and show you how it looked like. Then we will go into the details of it. So it's actually could be very long. And I actually already chose one of the shortest report. It is like 14 pages. Yeah, that is how it looked like. Okay, the reports are based on a calculation system of so-called 4 columns. As you can see, the report's first divided into 3 categories. It's about silver, which means the governmental funds. Then it's the mint metal procured and used. Then it's the coin part. In each category, there are 4 columns of previously stored, newly received, spent or used, and remaining. And so you can imagine there is a lot of numbers in this report. And which is the most important for us is this part of the silver and spent. You can, in this part, find the metal procurement, including metal type, origin, price, transport price, and transport costs. Another important part is the coin, newly cast coin. Then you have a number of how many coins they cast during this year or this period. And then the distribution of the newly cast coins. You can see how they dispose of their coins. So altogether, we have today access to 293 pieces of reports, each of a length of about 10 to 40 pages about the Chengdu Mint alone. They are an absolutely invaluable source if we want to do quantitative research on minting and monetary policy, but also on mint metal production in China. However, can we get a true and complete picture about mining and minting from these routine memorials? Today I would like to pick out 3 aspects of the copper coin production chain in Sichuan and question the routine memorials about them. They are mining, mint metal transport, minting, and coin circulation. The first one is the output of Sichuan's copper mines. First, let me show you the pictures at the right side. It's a old mine site in the Liangshan Yi Autonomous Prefecture in Sichuan. And that's a trip we did in April this year. And you can see several photos of the galleries and the slag all over the hills. You can see the gallery is actually very narrow. So Jinma mine is one of the many mines in Sichuan. According to the regulations established in 1745, for the operation of such a copper mine, every mine owner had to directly pay 20% as a raw copper he produced as a tax to the government. Then 4.5% is so-called wastage copper. He also needs to directly pay to the government to prepare for some possible loss during transportation. Then the rest is divided into half-half. The first half, he had to sell to the government at a low price, fixed low price of 9 tael of silver for 100 jin. 100 jin is about 60 kilo. Another half, he could then sell on the free market at any price he liked. Since the routine memorials record the amount of tax copper and the purchased copper as well as the wastage copper, so produced in that way from every single copper mine in Sichuan, actually they theoretically allow us to precisely reconstruct the development of every mine's output over a range of more than 150 years. When we do so, we obtain data which looked, for instance, like this. That is the most important copper mines yearly output together in tons, according to routine memorials. And here are some selected copper mines. So each mine situation, like Jinma mine here, is the one we have photo of. For most of all the mines, we notice very unstable but high output numbers during the 18th century, but then a change to very stable but low output numbers during the 19th century, right? At the same time, the overall coin output of the Chengdu Mint between 1769, for instance, clearly one of the peak year of copper production. Between this year and 1810, the copper coin output did not change at all. The routine memorials sometimes record that the difference between the copper procured in a regular way and the overall demand was always covered by buying an increasing amount of merchant copper from the market at regular prices. But where did this copper come from? Yunnan's production had long been declining, and the import of Japanese copper almost entirely vanished over the course of the 19th century. The only possible and technically most practicable answer is that large parts of it still came from Sichuan. Over the years, for reasons such as changes in the copper-silver exchange rate and an increase in fuel and commodity prices, mine owners could not manage to hand over 62.25% of their production for free or at dumping prices to the government anymore. Since the government was not willing to increase the regular prices for governmental purchase, copper began to leak from the official procurement system at any places. Mine owners produced contraband copper and smuggled it into the markets. One method to do so was, for instance, to directly cast the raw copper into pot or pan-shaped ingots and to avoid registration. During the transport, copper was intentionally lost on the way, for example, in shipwrecks, and then later salvaged again, and not least, local officials manipulated weights and measures and claimed copper illicitly to sell it as market copper for their own profit. Many of such practices were recorded more or less explicit in other sources, such as local archives, lawsuit materials, private writings, travel reports, and so on. One such passage can be found in the travelogue of a British diplomat, Edward Barber. When he passed the copper mining town of Huili in 1877, he recorded private parties who may have struck or are compelled to sell the produce at a fixed rate to the official of the district, who then disposes of it much as his own advantage directs. It is notorious in the neighborhoods that the Chinese government, central or provincial, does not receive a tenth part of the output. The copper has to be conveyed to the prefect of Ningyuan, who allows the mine owner 9.2 tael of silver per yao, a yao being nominally 138 catties. But the officials demand brimming measure which raises it to 142 catties. The officials can easily dispose of it privately at 22 taels per yao, but on the improbable assumption that they send it to the headquarters, they still get 14 taels from the provincial treasurer. So the price numbers Barber is giving suggests that he was rather well informed. His observation does support the assumption that the low procurement numbers in the routine memorials do not automatically reflect a general decline in Sichuan's copper mining, but rather a breakdown of the mint metal monopoly due to various abuses, which in the last consequence led to higher costs for the states. So the second one is the transport of mint metal. The routine memorials altogether provide us with information on 14 different transport routes from different mines. They record the length of those transport routes in post stations and the different means of transport used on the way, which is ship, raft, horse, or human carrier. At last, they list the fund used for the transport operation, including costs like package materials, armed escort, provisions, and so on. For each of these 14 routes over the whole time, as long as it was recorded, the transport costs never varied even a little. To evaluate this statement, we need to have a look at the conditions under which this transportation took place, as its topographic, infrastructural, climatic and ethnic environment and settings, for instance. 2 months ago, I traveled along the main transport route between the mining regions and Chengdu, mostly by car, but also by foot. Here are some impressions. We crossed the deep gorges, which today still don't allow the construction of roads. Mountain ranges higher than 3,000 meters, covered in snow and mist, and regions in which, to the present day, the ethnic minorities constitute more than 95% of the population. As can be imagined, conditions were not easier 200 years ago. Large stretches of the copper transport routes were at the same time parts of the famous horse tea route from Sichuan into Tibet, and of the Southern Silk Road from Sichuan into Burma, and further on to India. Therefore, many travelogues provide us with details which cast some doubts on the simplicity in routine memorials suggest. Mountain passes were often very dangerous and difficult to pass, especially in winter. Falling rocks and mudslides blocked the narrow paths in the valley and claimed many lives among carriers and pack animals. Food supplies in the sparsely settled mountains were unreliable and expensive, and caravans and settlements along the route were often attacked by indigenous mountain tribes, the Yi people. On the rivers, ships and rafts were often destroyed in unpredictable currents. All these aspects make it harder to believe that the transport could really be carried out with funds remaining the same until the third decimal place for decades. So now we look at this table of fund again. We can trace the actual situation from a handbook written in 1900, and we can say that at that time the cost for those two routes was higher than 5 tael per 100 jin of copper, which is still a rather conservative calculation. So the third one is the operation of the mint itself, in particular the composition of the alloy. As I have mentioned in the beginning, metal proportions in the coin's alloy were, though changing, always defined very clearly in the respective regulations. The metal consumption figures for the mint, which can be found in the routine memorials, confirmed that coins were always produced according to these regulations. In reality, quality and alloy of coins circulating in southwest China at different times and different places varied very much, especially at times when the copper prices were very high. Large amounts of debased cash appeared. Most of this cash appears to have been produced by private workshops which illegally recast regular coins. Often it can be found that after several times of recasting and debasing, this small cash, it's so-called small cash, became to look so miserable that no one would accept it anymore. But not only commoners made their profit by counterfeiting coins with lower copper content. We know from different edicts, especially the Qianlong Emperor sent to the Governor General of Sichuan, that the mint staff themselves manipulate alloy and weights of the coins as well. This manipulation must have been fairly systematic and tolerated or supported by different levels within the mint's hierarchy. One very interesting counterfeiting case I have worked on is the one of Old Raven Nest. Need to introduce a little bit. First, we can look at this map. It is it's a travel by a scholar official Zheng Guangzu during the time of late 18th century. He traveled from here, then northwards, then along the Yangtze River. So this is a close-up of the southwest China, as we can see. And here, you can see that's our Chengdu, where the Chengdu Mint sits. And here is the border region between two provinces. And this Lao Ya Wo, the old raven nest, locates at this border region in the very remote high mountains. First, we can see along this route of travel of Zheng Guangzu, he observed all different exchange rate between silver and copper cash, copper coin. And maybe you still remember the legal exchange rate was 1 to 1,000. And you can see here, it is very different. It's varied from place to place, and it's all much worse than the legal exchange rate. Some place even up to 1 to 10,000. So one tael of silver can exchange 10,000 pieces of cash, and that is the background or the conditions of the old raven nest counterfeiting case took place. Here, hundreds of people were employed to recast extremely debased small cash, which could not be accepted on the market anymore, into less debased cash, which would still be accepted and make good profit out of this. Because this was, of course, against the coinage monopoly of the state, this stronghold was seized by the military, and the counterfeiters were executed, and then the samples of the cash were sent to Beijing and presented to the Qianlong Emperor. The emperor thereupon wrote an edict in which he accused the Chengdu Mint to cast coins of a quality worse than the counterfeiting bandit. So here is some photos of the natural condition, just to have an overview. And here is some reports. The Sichuan governor, Fu Kang'an, report to the emperor, and the emperor wrote back with, again, the vermilion rescript to instruct him. So here's a very long edict from the Qianlong Emperor, but I promise you this is really worth the reading. Monetary standards became worse and worse, and coins lighter, thinner, and more fragile. This leads to the consequence that villains seized opportunity to cast small cash into coins, which match the regulations for standard cash to make profit. That a counterfeit small cash presented now by Fu Kang'an, who is the governor of Sichuan, is much better than the coins cast by provincial mints is a clear evidence of this. In this case, presently under investigation, there is no other way than to punish the commoners according to the statutes, because in seeking for profits, they have committed a crime. However, considering the shape and the make of these counterfeit, should we not give a reward to the government means in case they show themselves able to produce cash as good as this? Hereby, I order that the counterfeit coins presented by Fu Kang'an shall be distributed to the governors general and governors of those provinces with mints, as well as to the minting officials. They shall examine it to make each of them full of shame and regret. So from these three aspects, I think we can see the discrepancies between our routine memorials and the realities quite well. While they remain a highly precise and detailed source in many fields, in some places they provide us with a picture which is clearly manipulated and simplified and does not do justice to the complex condition under which minting took place in late imperial southwest China. If we use them, we need to stay aware that these documents and their compilers were a part of the story they are telling. As such, they followed their own interests and the interests of their institution by showing that the business was going on as usual and that regulations were adhered to. Behind this curtain, however, we should also see that although that we should also see through very variable and often illegal ways, the means was still able to fulfill its most basic tasks with a remarkable consistency for more than 200 years. Okay. Thank you. Now, please give me some suggestions.
Which one was the third one? Which one was the fastest one?
First is the transport of metal. The coin is first they deliver the metal from the mine to the mint, then they cast there. They don't transport coins, but that may be a market behavior. But this transportation, actually, there's not too much choices. It's only one way. You can imagine you first, maybe we can go back to the map, this map. You can see the mining regions is in Huili, Yanyuan, and some parts to the east of Ningyuan. And these places are all very mountainous. It's very, very difficult to travel, especially during that time. Actually, the indigenous Yi people, they press the root like this. So the root is just like a thin slice of a ham in the hamburger. So actually, the Han Chinese try all their best to maintain this transportation route to be through, but they always get attacked. So there's no other way. They have to go through this way, and they need to hire some quite friendly Yi people to be their protectors or something. They guarantee that there's no danger to go through this way. Then from here on, when you reach the Dashupu, then actually the mountain gets a little bit flatter. Then you also have the river. From here on, you actually, from the Yazhou on, you have the Ya River and then the Min River to Chengdu. Of course, the waterway is always very, very cheap. It's much cheaper than the landway. Yes. So, yes, the transportation was really difficult. And sometimes when I read it or also when I travel along it, I feel like I really don't know how they managed. It's really not easy to manage, and somehow they still did it. Yes, please.
The fuel requirements for this smelting and minting of this metal must have been enormous. So that would have meant a lot of deforestation. Would that require permits from the central government? And has anybody studied that? Because there also would have been a great deal of sedimentation.
Yes, yes, yes. Actually, the government didn't care. Now they do. And we have a research project in Tübingen University, and we cooperate with the geographers, and they set up great research on deforestation on this region. They are more to the south, but also, so as I mentioned, the mining region in Yunnan is also important. So they mainly focus on the northeast of Yunnan and with the connection to this most southern part of Sichuan, so this border region. So this Ningyuan, for example, Yanyuan, Huili, this mining region is also included. They did a great research on the deforestation in this region. And it's the damage to the forest is really very, very big, of course. Nowadays, this region is still actually look quite bald, can I say that? quite barren, yes, yeah. They really need the fuel for the mining, and they actually have some quite low quality coal mines. They have some coal, but it's actually also discovered or get mined quite late, and the quality is also not satisfying. So they mainly need to depend on the wood. Yes.
Are there pandas in that area? Are there pandas in that area?
What is pandas?
Pandas, the kind of bear-like animals.
Yeah, I read in some travelogue let me see, it's in the 1940s. They still say that they can find in the mining area some, what is that called, leopards or something. They can still find some, animals, some wild animals. But that was because in the early 1940s, the Yi people actually took over the strong control of this mining region. And they don't do any mining. They just feel like we need to destroy the Han people's mining, and we leave this place again wild, and that's nice or something. So during that time, they find some wild animals again. Later, not anymore. As soon as it went back to the Han Chinese hands, it always get explored and developed. Of course, also with a lot of destroying. Yeah. Yes, please.
Xiaojing, when I first read your work, I was really surprised to find the counterfeiters producing better coins than
That's
the
really
imperial mints.
Yeah.
In most countries, what happens in the mint's really secretive. And is very privileged knowledge.
Yes.
How was it that these barbarians, these illegal, lawless people, crudely making their own, how are they able to produce currency at better standards than the imperial?
Yeah, I think it's the most important reason is that the Chinese way of casting is really does not require a very high or secret knowledge. It's actually very simple. And also what I present last time in Copenhagen, everybody can do it if we watch several times. Actually, you can also see these counterfeiters in this old raven nest. At least two of them, they were formal mint workers in other mints. Yeah, but the technique was not difficult, and you have seen it, you know the knowledge, then you just easily teach a bunch of bandits. Actually, you only need some material, and in this case, their materials is not raw material, but the very, very bad quality small cash. I also need to mention during this time, because the central government realized how bad the coin circulation situation is, so they start a so-called small cash collecting campaign. In this region, they set up all kind of announcement to commoners, please come to the government with your bad coins, you can exchange with us. And the bandits make use of this situation. They directly bought such very bad small cash from commoners, from those people who didn't want to travel to the province capital. So they directly bought it from the commoners, then they have all the materials, then they do it. They cast it with a little bit better standard. And that actually even circulated from this Laoyawo region until even down to Chongqing. Yes.
And was it in books? Was the information even found in books at that time?
What kind of book? What do you mean?
Wood scrolls or wood...
Photos? You mean paintings or?
Not photos.
Paintings, I mean.
Yeah, was there that kind of, was it that generally known, or was it, what extent was the knowledge available? Had there been written accounts of how to make money or anything like that?
Yeah, actually we have a lot of materials. We have actually really a lot of materials about this counterfeiting case, because it was really the biggest during the whole imperial China, I would say. That's also why you can see here, that is only one example. Sorry, I used my finger to point. I can see. This is one piece of documents, you would say. Actually, this kind of a reports go and back between the officials and the emperors a lot. And we also have all kind of other sources like the gazetteers, also like some the inquisitions of the prisoners when they are caught. And in Tübingen, in Germany, we really in fact collect all the possible materials as we can into document language textbook. So we based on this interesting case to teach students how to deal with these Qing document language. So it's really, we do not really have any kind of original depictions of the thing, but we have some other kind of like some evidence of the photos we can also take. So yeah.
Just recently, a small aside, in Japan they managed to work out how to. They used to sell a very kind of pink copper to the Dutch.
Oh, okay.
It looked like wings, right? Mm-hmm. Really bright colour. And they managed to find documents explaining it all.
Yes, yes.
So I was just wondering, how much material is there about in
Yeah, I would really appreciate if Chinese could paint a little bit more. Actually, during the research, I always feel, with the Japanese cooperators, I always feel they have much better picture scrolls or all kind of things, and Chinese really don't. We have one book on the Yunnan mining technology, but they painted in a very, how to say, you cannot really tell much from that painting. It's just mountains, several people walking. Yeah, you actually don't get much from those paintings. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, Dennis.
The official figures, from what I understand, of the so-called copper cash are enormous numbers.
Yeah,
But the private production might have
even more.
even more, right?
Yeah.
And so we have to be pretty, and plus there's the reminting, as you were saying, of existing coins. So
Yes.
looking at the production end and trying to estimate the stock is pretty hopeless
Yes.
from that point of view.
Yes.
And then the other one that I wonder about is when we have information about prices expressed in terms of copper cash, well, what copper cash do you have in mind? I mean, because they have different values, right?
Yes.
Very poor quality, high quality, the official ones even worse than the counterfeit.
Sometimes,
and so forth. So, I mean, it would make me very dubious about what the meaning of a price is and
Yes.
comparing prices at the same time and over time.
Yeah, it's really, you always need to differentiate it. Also in different places. Yeah, that's really, we also try to establish some database of such price list and exchange rate. Yeah, then we realize it's just become too many and too different, and it's the work is still doing. Just, when you come across with all kind of sources, but it's really very difficult to say. Maybe I can show you another, let me see if I can get that. Another map I have made. That maybe can give you a little better view. Oh, sorry. No, this one is better. Sorry, that's the same one. This one. And it's also based on this Zheng Guangzu's travel, this Chinese in the 1795. You should also note this time is like the worst. There's no time is even worse than this time. It's later it's getting better. And before was all the time declining towards this situation. And he traveled really the very important regions of China, and he actually divided the whole Chinese, the route into 4 different regions. And in all these regions, he has wrote down how is the cash used in the in the region, and also the commodity prices. He also has information. For example, he say this region 1 is good. The region 1 is really good. The cash is with good quality, and it's thick, it's round, and people accept it, use it well. And copper, silver exchange rate, copper coin, silver exchange rate is also quite good. It also doesn't change much, doesn't have any inflammations. And the region 2 and 3, I do not really recall all the details, but the 2 and 3 is already quite bad. And the region of 4, that is our region. That is our southwest China, it's the worst. And in different counties, in different districts, even they have different exchange rate. Imagine you travel with your strings of cash, go through the southwest China, in different stations you take a rest, you buy tea or food, you need to pay different amount of cash. And people may sometimes say, I don't want your cash looks terrible. Please give me some silver. It's also possible. So it's really very complex situation. It's the worst time for cash. Yes. Please.
They were the means, for instance, in order to Vietnam or Burma, counterfeiting Chinese coins, or were not?
In Burma or you mean in this border region towards? That I really don't know. I think not. I think rather not anymore. Not anymore, because really you cannot circulate it anymore. People already in this Yunnan region, cash is already so not appreciated. So people already do not accept it anymore. So I hardly can imagine it still do counterfeiting in so south. It happens here along the Yangtze River, also because they can spend it. In the much southern region, I would imagine people already prefer to use silver coins much more than copper cash.
And
Yes.
not calories? Not cowries?
Cowries, I'm not sure, even in this late time, they still or not. But of course, in Yunnan, it's always the cowries. Yes, I'm not sure about that. Yeah. So, yes.
Do you think there's a relationship between how consolidated the markets are and how willing people are to accept this economy, even if they are not good quality? Is there a relationship between market consolidation? There are well-established markets in the populated areas.
Yeah, as I mentioned, you can see on this map, it's different places is different, right? And yeah, in some places, the small catch is still accepted at a certain level. They still have, interestingly, the people always know they always very clear how to exchange copper cash to silver at their own region. And it's really become some kind of a regional habit or something. People really know what to do. They are very clear with what to do. And in some places, they don't take copper cash at all. And the transaction in the market takes place in the shape of silver or bar. So they exchange directly the goods towards goods. For example, to the E people, they normally do not accept coins at all. They only take silver, or they take tobacco, or they take guns, or something like that. Yeah. So the market situation is also very difficult to estimate in different places. Yeah.
And I think that goes back to today's talk. I mean, this assumption that we find in monetary theory, for instance, that the money demand is stable. This example shows that sometimes it's not the case. Money demand is not always stable.
No, it's not. It varies a lot. Yeah.
In demand for which money? In demand for which particular money?
Yes. Oh, please. Sorry.
I know this project
Yes.
relatively intimate, but for when we consider the amount of copper moved from the south to the north in these conditions, the Chinese government to master to resources. What is a walking toilet.
For free or at dumping prices to the government anymore. Since the government was not willing to increase the regular prices for governmental purchase, copper began to leak from the official. Mine owners produced contraband copper and smuggled it into the markets. One method to do so was, for instance, to directly cast the raw copper into pot or pan-shaped ingots and to avoid registration. During the transport, copper was intentionally lost on the way. For example, in shipwrecks, and then later salvaged again, and not least local officials manipulated weights and measures and claimed copper illicitly to sell it as market copper for their own profit. Many of such practices were recorded more or less explicit in other sources, such as local archives, lawsuit materials, private writings, travel reports, and so on. One such passage can be found in the travelogue of a British diplomat, Edward Barber. When he passed the copper mining town of Guili in 1877, he recorded private parties who may have struck ore are compelled to sell the produce at a fixed rate to the official of the district, who then disposes of it much as his own advantage directs. It is notorious in the neighborhoods that the Chinese government, central or provincial, does not receive a tenth part of the output. The copper has to be conveyed to the prefect of Mingyuan, who allows the mine owner 9.2 tael of silver per yao, a yao being nominally 138 catties. But officials demand brimming measure which raises it to 142 catches. The officials can easily dispose of it privately at 22 taels per yao, but on the improbable assumption that they send it to the headquarters, they still get 14 taels from the provincial treasurer. So the second one is the transport of mint metal. The routine memorials altogether provide us with information on 14 different transport routes from different mines. They record the length of those transport routes in post stations and the different means of transport used on the way, which is a ship, raft, horse, or human carrier. And last but least, the fund used for the transport operation, including costs like package materials, armed escort, provisions, and so on. For each of these 14 routes over the whole time, as long as it was recorded, the transport costs never varied even a little. To evaluate this statement, we need to have a look at the conditions, mostly by car, but also by foot. Here are some impressions. We crossed deep gorges, which today still don't allow the construction of roads. Mountain ranges higher than 3,000 meters, covered in snow and mist, and regions in which, to the present day, the ethnic minorities constitute more than 95% of the population. As can be imagined, conditions were not easier 200 years ago. Large stretches of the copper transport routes were at the same time parts of the famous horse tea route from Sichuan into Tibet, and of the Southern Silk Road from Sichuan into Burma, and further on to India. Therefore, many travelogues provide us with details which cast some doubts on the simplicity in routine memorials suggest. Mountain passes were often very dangerous and difficult to pass, especially in winter. Falling rocks and mudslides blocked the narrow paths in the valley and claimed many lives among carriers and pack animals. Food supplies in the sparsely settled mountains were unreliable and expensive, and caravans and settlements along the route were often attacked by indigenous mountain tribes, the Yi people. On the rivers, ships and rafts were often destroyed in unpredictable currents. All these aspects made it harder to believe that the transport route could really be carried out with funds remaining the same until the third decimal place for decades. So now we look at this table of fund again. We can, but not only commoners made their profit by counterfeiting coins with lower copper content. We know from different edicts, especially the Qianlong Emperor sent to the Governor General of Sichuan, that the mint staff themselves manipulate alloy and weights of the coins as well. This manipulation must have been fairly systematic and tolerated or supported by different levels within the mint's hierarchy. One very interesting counterfeiting case I have worked on is the one of Old Raven Nest. To introduce a little bit, first we can look at this map. It is it's a travel by a scholar official, Zheng Guangzu, during the time of late 18th century. He traveled from here, then northwards, then along the Yangtze River. So this is a close-up of the southwest China, as we can see. And here you can see that's all Chengdu, where the Chengdu Mint sits. And here is the border region between two provinces. And this Lao Yaguo, the old Raven Nest, locates at this border region in the very remote high mountains. And first we can see along this route of travel of Zheng Guangzu, he observed all different exchange rate between silver and copper cash, copper coin. And maybe you still remember the legal exchange rate was 1 to 1,000. And you can see here, it is very different. It's varied from place to place. And it's all much worse than the legal exchange rate. Some places even up to 1 to 10,000. So one tael of silver can exchange 10,000 pieces of cash. And that is the background or the conditions of the old raven nest counterfeiting case took place. Here, hundreds of people were employed to recast extremely debased small cash, which could not be accepted on the market anymore, into less debased cash, which would still be accepted and make good profit out of this. Because this was, of course, against the coinage monopoly of the state, this stronghold was seized by the military, and the counterfeiters were executed, and then the samples of the cash were sent to Beijing and presented to the Qianlong Emperor. The emperor thereupon wrote an edict in which he accused the Chengdu Mint to cast coins of a quality worse than the counterfeiting bandit. So here is some photos of the natural condition, just to have an overview. And here is some reports. The Sichuan governor, Fu Kang'an, report to the emperor, and the emperor wrote back with, again, the Vermilion script to instruct him. So here's a very long edict from the Qianlong emperor, but I promise you this is really worth the reading. Monetary standards became worse and worse, and coins lighter, thinner, and more fragile. This leads to the consequence that villains seize opportunity to cast small cash into coins, which match the regulations for standard cash to make profit. That the counterfeit small cash presented now by Fu Kang'an, who is the governor of Sichuan, is much better than the coins cast by provincial mints, is a clear evidence of this. In this case, presently under investigation, there is no other way than to punish the commoners according to the statutes, because in seeking for profits, they have committed a crime. However, considering the shape and the make of these counterfeit, should we not give a reward to the government means in case they show themselves able to produce cash as good as this? Hereby, I order that the counterfeit coins presented by Fu Kang'an shall be distributed to the governors general and governors of those provinces with mints, as well as to the minting officials. They shall examine it to make each of them full of shame and regret. So far, thank you. Now, please give me some suggestions and comments. Yes, please.
Yes, you mentioned the different means of transport used to transport the copper coins. Which one was the preferred one? Which one was the fastest one? And was there any price difference between the different types of transport?
First is the transport of metal. The coin is first they deliver the metal from the mine to the mint, then they cast there. They don't transport coins, but that may be a market behavior. But this transportation, actually, there's not too much choices. It's only one way. You can imagine you first, maybe you can go back to the map, this map. You can see the mining regions is in Huili, Yanyuan, and some parts to the east of Ningyuan. And these places are all very mountainous. It's very, very difficult to travel, especially during that time. Actually, the indigenous Yi people, they press the root like this. So the root is just like a thin slice of a ham in the hamburger. So actually, the Han Chinese try all their best to maintain this transportation route to be through, but they always get attacked. So there's no other way. They have to go through this way, and they need to hire some quite friendly Yi people to be their protectors or something. They guarantee that there's no danger to go through this way. Then from here on, when you reach the Dashupu, then actually the mountain gets a little bit flatter. Then you also have the river. From here on, you actually, from the Yazhou on, you have the Ya River and then the Min River to Chengdu. Of course, the waterway is always very, very cheap. It's much cheaper than the landway.
Yeah.
Yes. So, yes, the transportation was really difficult, and sometimes when I read it or also when I travel along it, I feel like really don't know how they manage. It's really not easy to manage, and somehow they still did it. Yes. Please.
The fuel requirements for this smelting and the minting of this metal must have been enormous. So that would have meant a lot of deforestation. Would that require permits from the central government, and has anybody studied that? Because there also would have been a great deal of sedimentation in the
Yes.
rivers then.
Yes, yes. Actually, the government didn't care. Now they do. And we have a research project in Tübingen University, and we cooperate with the geographers, and they set up great research on deforestation on this region. They are more to the south, but also, so as I mentioned, the mining region in Yunnan is also important. So they mainly focus on the northeast of Yunnan and with the connection to this most southern part of Sichuan, so this border region. So this Ningyuan, for example, Yanyuan, Huili, this mining region is also included. They did a great research on the deforestation in this region. And it's the damage to the forest is really very, very big. Of course, if nowadays this region is still actually look quite bald, can I say that? quite barren. Yes, yeah. They really need the fuel for the mining, and they actually have some quite low quality coal mines. They have some coal, but it's actually also discovered or get mined quite late, and the quality is also not satisfying. So they mainly need to depend on the wood. Yes.
Are there pandas in that area? Are there pandas in that area?
What is panda?
Pandas, they're kind of bear-like animals.
Yeah, I read in some travel log let me see, it's in the 1940s. They still say that they can find in the mining area some what is that called? Leopards or something. They can still find animals, some wild animals. But that was because in the early 1940s, the Yi people actually took over the strong control of this mining region. And they don't do any mining. They just feel like we need to destroy the Han people's mining and we leave this place again wild, and that's nice or something. So during that time, they find some wild animals again. Later, not anymore. As soon as it went back to the Han Chinese hands, it's always get explored and developed. Yeah, of course, also with a lot of destroying. Yeah. Yes, please.
Xiaojing, when I first read your work, I was really surprised to find the counterfeiters producing better coinage than the imperial mints. You know, in most countries, what happens in the mint's really secretive, and it is very privileged knowledge.
Yes.
How was it that these sort of barbarians, these illegal, lawless people, crudely making their own, how are they able to produce currency of better standards than the imperial mint?
Yeah, I think its most important reason is that the Chinese way of casting is really does not require a very, very high or secret knowledge. It's actually very simple. And also what I presented last time in Copenhagen, everybody can do it if we watch several times. Actually, you can also see these counterfeiters in this old raven nest. At least two of them, they were formal mint workers in other mints.
Okay,
Yeah, but the technique was not difficult, and you have seen it, you know the knowledge, then you just easily teach a bunch of bandits. Actually, then you only need some material, and in this case, their materials is not raw material, but the very, very bad quality small cash. I also need to mention during this time, because the central government realized how bad the coin circulation situation is, so they start a so-called small cash collecting campaign. in this region, they set up all kind of announcement to commoners, please come to the government with your bad coins, you can exchange with us. And the bandits make use of this situation. They directly bought such very bad small cash from commoners, from those people who didn't want to travel to the province capital. So they directly bought it from the commoners, then they have all the materials, then they do it. They cut it with a little bit better standard. And that actually even circulated from this Laoyabo region until even down to Chongqing. Yes.
And was it in books, indeed? Was the information even found in books at that time?
What kind of book? What do you mean?
Were scrolls or were the kind of...
Photos? You mean paintings? Or?
Yeah, not photos.
Paintings, I mean.
Yeah, was there that kind of, was it that generally known, or was it, to what extent was the knowledge available? Had there been written accounts of how to make money or anything like that?
Yeah, actually we have a lot of materials. We have actually really a lot of materials about this counterfeiting case because it was really the biggest during the whole Imperial China, I would say. That's also why you can see here, that is only one example. Sorry, I use my finger to point, I can see. This is one piece of documents you would say. Actually, this kind of a reports go and back between the officials and emperors a lot. And we also have all kinds of other sources like the gazetteers, also like some the inquisitions of the prisoners when they are caught. And in Tübingen, in Germany, we really in fact collect all the possible materials as we can into document language textbook. So you based on this interesting case to teach students how to deal with these Qing document language. So it's really, we do not really have any kind of original depictions of the thing, but we'll have some other kind of like some evidence of the photos we can also take. So yeah.
Just recently, as a small aside, in Japan they managed to work out how to. They used to sell a very kind of pink copper to the Dutch in Japan.
Oh, yeah.
It looked like Venus, right? Really bright colour. And they managed to find documents explaining it all.
Yes.
So I was just wondering, how much material is there about minting from?
Yeah, I would really appreciate if Chinese could take a little bit more. Actually, during the research, I always feel, with the Japanese cooperators, I always feel they have much better picture scrolls or all kind of things, and Chinese really don't. We have one book on the Yunnan mining technology, but they painted in a very, how to say, you cannot really tell much from that painting. It's just mountains, several people walking. Yeah, you actually don't get much from those paintings. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Yes, Dennis.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions or points. One is the official figures, from what I understand of the so-called copper cash, are enormous numbers.
Yeah.
But the private production might have even been greater, even more, right?
Yeah.
And so we have to be pretty, and plus there's the reminting, as you were saying, of existing coins. So looking at the production end and trying to estimate the stock of is pretty hopeless, right?
Yes.
From that point of view.
Yes.
And then the other one that I wonder about is when we have information about prices expressed in terms of copper cash, what copper cash do you have in mind? I mean, because they have different values, right? They're very poor quality, high quality, the official ones even worse than the counterfeit and so forth. So I mean, it would make me very dubious about what the meaning of a price is and comparing prices at the same time and over time.
Yeah, it's really, you always need to differentiate it. Also in different places. Yeah, that's really, we also try to establish some database of such price lists and exchange rate. Yeah, then we realized it's just become too many. and to different. And it's, the work is still doing. Just when you come across with all kind of sources, but it's really very difficult to say. Maybe I can show you another. Let me see if I can get that. Another map I have made. That maybe can give you a little better view. Oh, sorry. No, this one is better. Sorry, that's the same one. This one. And it's also based on this Zheng Guangzu's travel, this Chinese in the 1795. You should also know this time is like the worst. There's no time is even worse than this time. It's later it's getting better. And before was all the time declining towards this situation. And he traveled really the very important regions of China, and he actually divided the whole Chinese, the route into 4 different regions. And in all these regions, he has wrote down how is the cash used in the situation in the region, and also the commodity prices. He also has information. For example, he say this region 1 is good. The region 1 is really good. The cash is with good quality, and it's thick, it's round, and people accept it, use it well. And copper, silver exchange rate, copper coin, silver exchange rate is also quite good. It's also doesn't change much, doesn't have any inflammations. And the region 2 and 3, I do not really recall all the details, but the 2 and 3 is already quite bad. And the region 4, that is our region. That is our southwest China, is the worst. And in different counties, in different districts, even they have different exchange rate. Imagine you travel with your strings of cash, go through the southwest China, in different stations you take a rest, you buy tea or food, you need to pay different amount of cash. And people may sometimes say, I don't want your cash looks terrible. Please give me some silver. It's also possible. Yeah, so it's really very complex situation. Yeah, it's the worst time for cash. Yes. Please.
They were means in, for instance, northern Vietnam or Burma, counterfeiting Chinese coins, or were not?
In Burma
Or in territories outside of China?
You mean in this border region towards?
Yes.
That I really don't know. I think not. I think rather not anymore.
Not anymore.
Not anymore, because really you cannot circulate it anymore. People already in this Yunnan region, cash is already so not appreciated. So people already do not accept it anymore. So I hardly can imagine it still do counterfeiting in so south. It happens here along the Yangtze River, also because they can spend it. In the much south region, I would imagine people already prefer to use silver coins much more than copper cash.
And not cowries? Not cowries?
Cowries, I'm not sure, even in this late time they still or not. But of course in Yunnan it's always the cowries. Yes, I'm not sure about that. Yeah.
Do you think there's a relationship between how consolidated the markets are and how willing people are to accept these copper coins, even if they are not of good quality? Is there a relationship between market consolidation? Is there well-established markets and in densely populated areas?
Yeah. As I mentioned, you can see on this map, it's different places is different, right? And in some places, the small cash is still accepted at a certain level. They still have, interestingly, the people always know they always very clear how to exchange copper cash to silver at their own region. And it's really become some kind of a regional habit or something. People really know what to do. They are very clear with what to do. And in some places, they don't take copper cash at all. And the transaction in the market takes place in the shape of silver or bar. So they exchange directly the goods towards goods. For example, to the Yi people, they would they normally do not accept coins at all. They only take silver, or they take tobacco, or they take guns, or something like that. Yeah. So the market situation is also very difficult to estimate in different places.
And I think that goes back to Dennis's talk. I mean, these assumptions that we find in monetary theory, for instance, that the money demand is stable, these examples show that sometimes it's not the case. Money demand is not always stable.
No, it's not. It varies a lot.
And demand for which money? And demand for which particular money?
Yes, yes.
Only a comment. I know this project
Yes.
relatively intimate, but for the history of the world and for the history of China, when we consider the amount of copper moved from the south to the north in these conditions, indicate the amount of labor that was available in China, and indicate the ability of the Chinese government to master two resources.
Yes.
You know, this is nothing in the history of the world, I think, is comparable with this. Potosí is a walk in the tulips compared to moving copper from Yunnan to Chengdu.
Yeah.
And the Chinese government did. Because I remember an anecdote that during the summertime when the water was low, people used fire and vinegar in order to erode the rocks on the rivers.
Yes.
So imagine the amount of work that implies. Every summer they were eliminating rocks using fire and vinegar. How was the combination, how they did it, I don't know. But that was the case.
Yes.
And in a society that is able to master this amount of resources has lessons for the rest of the world and kind of a portent of things to come.
Yes.
Because I read the last semester, making coins is the first mass industry in the history of the world. It's the first mass industry. One of the first. I don't want to be, but one of the first. Porcelain, yes, but coins were made much before that porcelain. So, and coins, one of the requirements is that are uniform, or at least they try to be. So this is one of the first mass industries of the world.
Yeah, it's really this copper cash minting is so important for the government. Has been a long tradition. It's the government's task to fulfill this their legitimacy to do so. They have to do it, although it's actually has never been a profitable business. They still try their best to carry out this project.